I don't take much interest in the rantings of this bloke who calls himself the Aussie Cossack. But there's a story today by Perry Duffin in the Sydney Morning Herald about where he is. I haven't heard about him for a while. I wonder where he was. Well, he's hiding out, apparently, in the Russian consulate. Now, he was told to come to police because he was facing charges and probably incarceration. But he instead sped off, instead of going to the police station where they required him to go, to the Russian consulate, where he's remained ever since. The 33-year-old Australian, and he's Australian, born, has holed up since December in a modest apartment in the blonde brick Russian consulate, which overlooks the finessed lawns of the wealthy area of Wallara. The anti-vaccination bloke, his name is Boykov, his real name Boykov, but he calls himself the Aussie Cossack. And as a result of this, Simeon Boykov, he was on parole for breaching a suppression order when he was told he was wanted for questioning over the alleged assault of a pro-Ukrainian protester. Rather than face the arrest on the eve of the planned trip to Moscow in December, he drove straight to the Russian consulate where he's remained ever since. He said being banned from YouTube was not a disaster, but 3 months ago he fled his comfortable life in Breakfast Point, which is down near Des Moines, hoping to keep his broadcast alive. I was driving on the Anzac Bridge. I rang Day Street Police. They connected me to the inspector, said, come in, hand yourself in. You're going back inside. Parole wants you. I said, nah. So I gunned it to the consulate, hoping I wouldn't get picked up. Boykov had been given 10 months in prison for breaching a suppression order and naming an alleged pedophile at an anti-lockdown rally November or May 2022. He was paroled and booked a ticket to Russia. Then he spotted a pro-Ukraine protest at Town Hall, decided to start filming. An older man confronted Australia's most vocal pro-Putinist, and Boykov pushed him away, the older man injured, tumbling down the steps. He was born in Sydney, but of Russian heritage. Boykov visited his ancestral home in 2014 and met with one of 3 Russian nationalists, later convicted and sentenced to life for downing the passenger airliner MH17 over Ukraine. Like I say, I don't pay much attention to the raving lunatic. He seems to attack everyone. But what does concern me, and I have mentioned this previously, there's an online broadcast operation, I think operating out of Australia, that seems to be very pro-Russian and very anti-Ukraine, even though it employs Australian broadcasters. The suggestion is that that operation is funded by the Russians. Who knows, maybe old mate Simeon will come out of there and appear on a drive show on this particular online broadcast facility. I think it's a very dangerous thing when it appears that a pro-Russian online broadcast in Australia is pouring absolute untruths into the community because some gullible people believe what they hear from who they believe trusted broadcasters. They can't be trusted in any way, shape or form, I can assure you. All odds is up 100 points, 1.35% to 7,512. $1 buying 66.55 US cents. Just on this bloke, Simeon Boykov, I get a lot of emails about him, which I just disregard, saying, why don't they send him back to Russia? Well, the reason is because he's Sydney born. He's Australian. The Aussie Cossack is just a raving lunatic, and hopefully the authorities will catch up with him sooner rather than later, and he'll go back to Silverwater Jail to see out his sentence. 131873, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au, coming up to 12 the midday.